So we're going to come back to part two of the Marcus Aurelius exploration with Donald Robertson, Philosopher Donald Robertson. And we're going to start off with Gray's question, age 5. What's your favorite ice cream and what's your favorite book that you wrote so far?
Well, I don't eat that much ice cream, to be honest. Like, my wife's the expert on ice cream. I think she likes cookie dough flavor. I
Oh,
guess, yeah, but
that's
everyone
good.
likes I like my favorite ice cream is affogato, which is ice cream with coffee poured on
Mm.
top. Like, and the only thing that I guess could make it better would be if you sprinkle beef jerky on it as well. And my favorite book is Verissimus, the graphic novel, which I've got here. I know some of you guys have read this, and the adult bits were like covered over with duct tape or whatever. Because I like pictures. Like, and I put lots of work into writing that book. We didn't sell as many copies of it as we sold of the other books, but I'm really glad that I did it and I enjoyed doing it. It was almost like making a movie in a way. So it was a very different experience from writing other books. So I enjoyed doing that.
And okay, so moving from favorite ice cream and favorite book to your favorite drink. This is from Athena, age 6. What is your favorite drink? Is your favorite drink water? Is it lemonade? How are you so kind? How did you write that book? And did Marcus Aurelius know Athena the goddess?
That's a lot of questions. All
It
right,
is.
my favorite drink is tap water with a few drops of vinegar in it. And I also like black coffee, which is what I'm drinking at the moment. Once I was being interviewed by a nice lady who was a journalist on Zoom, and she said, "What are you drinking?" And I said, "Black coffee and water and vinegar." And then a few weeks later, I heard the same nice lady who was a journalist on another podcast saying she'd been talking to Donald Robertson, that guy, and he said he drank coffee with vinegar in it, and that sounded really gross. So I was like, sometimes you have to be careful how you phrase things. And I was like, no, they're two different things, right? The coffee's over here, and then there's water with vinegar, which some people might think is gross anyway. But she thought I meant they were all in one glass together, which would be really weird. Um, so I sometimes you have to be careful how you phrase things. I do quite
Good
like
lesson.
lemonade. Yeah, my daughter Poppy really likes San Pellegrino lemonade.
Mm.
Um, and I'd like to tell you, Athena, that Marcus Aurelius received a letter from his Latin teacher, Fronto, wishing Marcus's mother, whose name was Lucilla, a happy birthday. And in the letter, Fronto compares her to Athena. So apparently, Marcus's mum resembled the goddess Athena, who's the patron goddess of Athens and the god of wisdom and owls. She's the goddess of owls. And then the other question was, how are you so kind? And I'm like, well, I have to say, I'm not renowned for my kindness, but maybe sometimes I can be kind. And I like to think I'm kind to my kids and my family and stuff. But the word kind, we're rocking some etymology today, comes from the Germanic word that we get kin from. So this is really cool. I didn't know about that. I thought I knew a lot about etymology. And then someone told me, and I was like, that's right. So the word kind originally meant treating someone as if they're your kin. And this idea
Ah,
exists in
nice.
Stoicism.
Yes.
We call it oikiosis, is the Greek word in Stoicism that means bringing someone into your household or acting as if they're a member of your family. It's kind of like xenia that Anya mentioned earlier, which is a Greek tradition of showing hospitality towards guests and foreigners. So I think to be kind means viewing strangers more as if they were like your brothers or sisters or family members, like the Brotherhood of Man. It's a kind of ancient moral ideal. So
Wait, that
there
only
you go.
works
That
if you're nice to your brothers and sisters.
only
I
works
should
if you're
say.
nice to your brothers and sisters.
If you're picking on them, don't do that to either your brothers and sisters or to strangers. And can I just say that I like that the first name was Gray and this one's Athena, and Athena is usually called the gray-eyed goddess, gray-eyed Athena. So there
That's true.
is
That's good. Well
a
spotted.
continuation,
That's
continuation.
that's
Okay, so next, from Gold, age 7, Philosopher Donald. What character from mythology were his, Marcus Aurelius's, favorite? And what is your favorite cake? And can you come to the party?
Well, gold, like, is where the name Aurela or Aurelius come from. So Marcus Aurelius' favorite character from mythology, I'm not really sure. He probably did have one because he read a lot of Greek tragedies. He might have been kind of into characters that you wouldn't have heard of as much. But I think he quite likes Demeter, which is a Greek goddess of nature. And her name, arguably, some ancient authors say means Earth Mother. It means something to do with being a mother. And one author says it means Earth Mother, or it could mean Grain Mother. She's a goddess of grain. He went all the way to Athens to visit her temple outside Athens, just down the road from Athens, which is called Eleusis. And they liked Marcus Aurelius so much they made a statue of him and surround it with poppy flowers, which is the symbol of Demeter, and that's still there today at the Temple of Eleusis. So if you want to see Marcus Aurelius, you can go to Athens and go to the ruins of Eleusis, and you'll still see he's still there. And Marcus talks a lot in the Meditations about how much he loves nature, and I think that ties in with the fact that he likes this goddess of nature. My favorite cake is whatever cake that I can give to my wife to eat and it makes her happy. And I think I missed the party because I was working all the time writing books, which is a pity because I would like to have come to your party. So I'm sorry I missed it, and I hope it was fun. But
Well,
that's my excuse, is that I had to
I'm
write
sure it was
books.
fun. And can I just say, Demeter is my favorite goddess also, because her
Yeah.
story is so epic. She's one of the few, I think, gods and goddesses that's like seems like a genuinely like good person or good god, you know, like
She seems good. Yeah.
because a lot of them can be a bit petty or mean at times. Like sometimes they're really
Yeah.
cool. Like I mean, Athena at times is like awesome, but then sometimes and she can be a little and she sometimes has anger issues also. But Demeter, like she has
Yeah.
this great story about like rescuing her daughter and like maternal love and you know, and she went head to head with like both Zeus, the king of all gods, and
Uh-huh.
Hades, the underworld,
Yeah.
like from
Yeah.
and she won. Like, wow, so cool.
That is really cool. That's cool.
She
But Anya, the gods move in mysterious ways. So the histories, the Greek gods, sometimes they seem like childish and they have tantrums and they get upset. They don't really even seem like grown-ups. But sometimes they're like maybe there's hidden meaning behind their actions. I hope. Like that's what we're gonna well, let's say that. Let's pretend that's true.
no, okay,
Right.
here we've got another tricky question for you, for philosopher Donald.
Another tricky question.
What hold on one second. Okay, sorry. What plus Marcus Aurelius plus Connor equals?
All right. Actually, this is an easy question, right? Because Connor is a Celtic name meaning lover of wolves. And
Okay.
Marcus, as we said earlier, comes from Mars, the Roman god of war. Wolves were sacred animals of Mars, and Mars had twin boys called Romulus and Remus, who were raised by a wolf and went on to found the city of Rome, where Marcus Aurelius was born, grew up, and became emperor. So I think the answer is that if you combine Marcus Aurelius plus Connor, what you get is Mars squared, which is Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. That's
Boom.
my answer. Boom.
Rome.
Yeah.
Rome.
Yeah. You get Rome. All
Wow.
roads lead to Rome.
So that question was from Blue Power Ranger, aka the Marcus
Yeah.
Aurelius Fan Club's. I can't say his name very well.
Cleanthes, Cleanthes.
Calanthes.
Cleanthes.
You know, there's some.
Yeah.
Can I just say this for all the kids too? Like, you can read so much in the ancient world. You can even study ancient Greek. You can be studying modern Greek, and you can still come up with names that you're like, wait, how did I pronounce that? So I think it happens to everyone.
But
Um,
how many languages can you speak?
oh, you know what? I love studying languages, but I'm
Uh-huh.
actually really bad at it. So I love
It's
the
speaking them.
process of studying how languages work. So I like studied linguistics. So I love studying like the structure of a language, and I really love alphabets. Like I love learning different alphabets. but the actual process of like memorizing the words and the like listening and the idioms, I'm not as so I've studied lots and lots and lots of languages, but I'm not very good at any of them.
Well, we should say if you want to learn a language, the best time to do it is when you're like 6 or 7,
Yes.
like because it's much easier to learn another language when you're young. And then sometimes the more you study lots of different languages, it can actually become a little bit confusing because like different names and things are pronounced differently in
Yeah.
different languages. So sometimes I'll be reading ancient Greek, but I'll pronounce it like it would be in modern Greek, but with the Scottish accent, and that just
Yeah.
confuses everybody. So, but
Oh
then
yeah.
again, I don't care. I don't really worry about it so much anymore.
I speak Spanish, so yeah, it happens to me a lot that I'll try to pronounce it in Spanish. So okay, so the next question from Rhea, age 7, about to be 8, is what is this Marcus Aurelius book going to be about? Are there any interesting parts?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I deliberately put in interesting parts this time round so that more people would read it. It's about a horrible pandemic, much worse than the one that we had, wars, and how his brother was silly, and how he used philosophy to help him remain calm when everything was going pear-shaped around him, which is a British idiom that means when things were going catastrophically badly. Like there was a big flood of the river Tiber, all the houses fell down, like a lot of animals died and things. People were starving because they couldn't grow grain because of the flood. There was a lot of disease. They had this huge plague. They had several wars. Like they had problems with the economy. So he had to deal with a lot of problems, Marcus Aurelius. But what the book's really about is how he dealt with it and how he used philosophy and stoicism to have a philosophical attitude towards misfortune so that he didn't freak out like other people might have, but he remained very calm and he dealt with things very wisely.
So another element of what's inside the book from Antonio, age 10, does Marcus Aurelius talk about Nero in this book?
Well, Marcus Aurelius mentions Nero a few times in his writings, and the book. So Nero was another Roman emperor that was like about 100 years earlier, roughly. But he had a reputation for being a bad emperor that a lot of people didn't like. He was a silly man, and he upset a lot of people, and he did outrageous things. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book um, about Nero, just to prove that I actually did write stuff about Nero in this book. Lucius, Marcus Aurelius's adopted brother, had the misfortune to be born on the birthday of Emperor Nero, a tyrant, that means like a dictator, right? A bad ruler, who was vilified by Rome's elite. That means all the wealthy and powerful people in Rome were like, this guy's a villain, Nero. Marcus mentions his brother's birthday twin only once. Birthday twin is somebody who you're born on the same birthday as. To use him as an example of how certain men can degenerate into animals dominated by their appetites. So Marcus is like, that Nero guy, he was like, like an animal. Like he wasn't acting rationally or wisely at all. One early historian described Lucius, Marcus's adopted brother, as a second Nero, except that he was neither cruel nor given to acting. The latter trait considered thoroughly disreputable by most Romans. This is a weird thing. The Romans didn't like actors. Like they were like, oh, at least he's not an actor. Nero wanted to be an actor, and he would so he maybe gave actors a bad reputation because Nero would have these huge festivals out in the park, and everyone. I don't know if you know about this, Anya. He had a special regiment of soldiers created to stand around the festival perimeter with swords. And if you didn't clap when Nero played his lyre and sang a song, then you might get beheaded. So they had all these soldiers, and they're like, "You better applaud. Try like you look like you're not having a good time. Like you need to look more like you're having a good time right now." And you'd be like, "Oh yeah, sure, this is awesome." Like that's Nero was kind of like, I don't know what the modern equivalent of that is. Like, but he was like a narcissist and he was vain. And he wanted everybody to like him so much that he threatened them into pretending that they liked him. And he would get on stage and sing and act. But Lucius wasn't into acting, and at least he wasn't cruel. So maybe he was actually kind, although silly. So Lucius, like Nero, was a nervous speaker, a binge drinker. That means he drank too much wine, and a gambling addict. He liked to gamble on the throw of dice, who enjoyed an extravagant and indulgent lifestyle. So that's what I say. One of the things I say about Nero in the book, he was from 100 years earlier, but some people say he was a little bit like Marcus's brother, who was born on the same day as him, but Marcus's brother wasn't into acting and he wasn't as cruel as Nero. He was just a bit silly.
Now, if I recall, in the Colosseum, there was a rule that certain people weren't allowed in, and it was three people. One was former gladiators. There was another one, I can't remember, and the other was actors.
Really? I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they really didn't like actors.
I don't know why they didn't like it. I don't know exactly why. I could speculate, but like maybe another time. But yeah, like and so Nero was very controversial. He did all these horrible things, and they're like, and he was an actor. Just to cap it all, that guy. Like,
So very last question. This one is from Anya, age 40. What's your favorite thing about Marcus Aurelius?
my favorite thing about Marcus Aurelius may surprise people because philosophy originated in some ways as a reaction against something. So in the ancient world, there were people called the sophists who were experts at using really persuasive language. They knew how to win arguments, but that didn't mean that they were always right about things. They were just good at kind of convincing people of stuff that wasn't necessarily true. And they got hired by politicians. Like, so the sophists were advisors to politicians, and over time they got really good at kind of manipulating audiences and voters, and like twisting their arm and telling them lies basically, or getting them really frightened about certain things or angry about other things by using language. And philosophers thought we need to learn to think more clearly so that we don't get kind of misled by these people. They're getting better and better at misleading us. So we need to learn to use reason and wisdom and think more carefully. And so one of the things I like about Marcus, strangely, was he trained in rhetoric for many years. And he thought maybe we could take rhetoric and do good things with it as well as bad things with it. And so Marcus took wise sayings from philosophers and he used rhetoric to rephrase them so that they would be more memorable. And that's what he's doing in the meditations. He says the same thing over and over again. He says he's got like a handful of ideas, but he says them lots of different ways. He says, I've just thought of another cool way to express this idea. And he's using his skill as a writer. Like he's a wordsmith. He's good at coming up with the right words. Rhetoric was a very complicated art. It had lots of rules. Even in the ancient world, it was complicated. Marcus had one of the most famous Latin rhetoric teachers ever, this guy called Fronto. And Fronto used to say to Marcus, it doesn't matter if you have these wise ideas, if you don't know how to put them into words properly and communicate them to other people, so you have to be clear and precise in your language as well. And rhetoric will teach you how to do that. So politicians sometimes are maybe using rhetoric to manipulate people and mislead them, but philosophers could potentially be using rhetoric to communicate the truth more precisely, more clearly, in a more memorable way. And Fronto says, look, the whole art of rhetoric could be boiled down to one thing. And Marcus is like, well, what's that? And Fronto says, well, over the years, like Anya, I was very interested in language and I studied lots of different words. And he said the trick with rhetoric is not all the time, but occasionally not to use the most common word for something, but to use an unusual word for it, but only if the unusual word communicates what you want to say better than the ordinary word would. Like, and he said that's like poetry. Like, yep. So to be a really good speechwriter, you pick a phrase or a word or a metaphor, it's a little bit different from the way that people would normally phrase it. Like you do that once in a while, and he says then people will really remember what you're saying. It will kind of like, it will create an image that will stick in your minds. And the best example I ever had of that is there was a journalist in the UK, and he was talking about a politician that he thought was a kind of creepy guy, right? But instead of saying this politician's kind of a bit creepy, he said he's got a smile like a glint of winter sunshine on a coffin lid. Like, and I thought, wow,
Wow,
that's like an unusual way to say it, but like I kind of get what he means, and it makes it more memorable and therefore more
amazing.
powerful. So Marcus takes that not just to slag off politicians, but to take profound philosophical ideas and make them more memorable and more interesting.
Well, I think that's a perfect favorite thing for a writer to appreciate about a former writer and influence.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think that's a great way for us to finish up, and I want to say thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed learning a little bit more about Marcus Aurelius and Philosopher Donald writing about Marcus Aurelius.
Thanks, everyone.